Morning. Monday morning. So a lot of the news this morning is going on about education and how schools are graded, and they're kind of like everything else are dumbing down Ofsted kind of reports, so they won't say outstanding or good or whatever. There'll be just blurb that you can read, and it just reminds me of the whole kids in like sports day races, like there's no winners, everyone's a winner, and then they wonder why kids kind of then can't really be asked, and because it doesn't have any meaning left. Labour and socialist policies right now that we're seeing across a lot of countries, but particularly in the UK and America actually, is a real sense of dumbing down and infantilizing. So like they're talking about don't test kids on times tables anymore, and don't be so pernickety about grammar. Like these are the basics, like the 3 R's, like the basics, spelling, arithmetics of education and learning. And you go back, I'm always going back, aren't I? It'd be good if we could go forward or be happy with how we are, but everything seems, in the past kids were super bright. They'd read that, when I again harp on about the kids I knew when I was in my primary school, they'd read so much. I mean, we even had Latin, which was useless, but still it's about that learning ethic. And then my parents, again, it was drilled into your timetables, and you were so broad in your reading of different literature, and your grammar and your vocabulary was a lot wider with words that they used. We do seem to just be, going down. There's things I'd like to say, I don't think I can say. But why are we always dumbing down? Is it to suit certain people? Or is it the bigger agenda, which I've discussed in the past with the likes of Yuri Bezmenov, the ex-KGB operative in the 80s. I keep saying this. Great interview with him on TV, talking about the focus of people like Russia, China, etc. was actually to infiltrate strong Western societies like America, UK. It wasn't going to be like a normal warfare. It was going to be to demoralize and destabilize strong nations and their kind of persona, their very being. And he said it would start with the education. That would take a few decades, and then those kids that have been dumbed down, have been demoralized and told your history is bad, your race is bad potentially, masculinity is bad, blah blah blah, and fed loads of liberal mental Marxist ideologies instead, and dumbed down education as well. You then get those kids that are all a little bit more angry, a little bit more like they don't know where they belong, a little perhaps less well read, less articulate, less knowledgeable. And then those people that have been fed a lot of woke stuff are then the people that we now have in positions of power, whether NHS or in government, in education, in our military. And then that's how society crumbles. Everything starts to break down and crumble because everything's focused on nonsense ideology that brings nothing to the table, rather than the old school. Like you look to China, and it's always the Chinese kids that are right at the top because they're really focused on kids and education and old school ethics and drilling down maths and sciences, and they're so bright. And it's not, our brains are very similar. It's the work ethic. And similarly, like in China, they're not allowed TikTok. I think they're allowed an hour, and the TikTok that they have is educational. It's not like the load of crap that the Western kids are given. And then there was some research where Western kids were asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? And they were like, I want to be, a social media influencer, blah, blah, blah. And then you ask the Chinese kids, and they were all like, I want to be an astronaut, I want to be an engineer. Really big difference. And again, it's got nothing to do with money, because again, I have seen the research somewhere, I haven't got it here, but the poorer kids often in China are some of the best performing kids, because their parents really want them to do better, and they, you know, make sure they work really hard. I think they probably work too hard, in all honesty. Probably don't have enough balance with having a childhood, but that's just my opinion. I don't base that on anything, so I could be completely wrong. And I just think everything Labour represents, like the private school, other countries give tax breaks to those that go to private school because they see the benefit of private education. They also see the benefit of taking kids out of the state to lessen the burden, and they just see it as another option for people to have. So France, you know, so many places help people to go down that route and give other options, make it easier, make it more affordable. And private schools often are a lot harder in terms of your learning discipline and ethics. They do tend to be a lot more conservative with their values. They do have their old, you know, more assemblies, harvest festivals, more traditional English culture. They tend to be more patriotic, have a lot of military. I've spoken about this all before, and they get really good results. So why wouldn't you want to emulate that in the state sector rather than penalise something that for centuries has worked really well and has made education revered across the world and brought many people from overseas to come to the private school sector? Everything I see, in my opinion, with Labour is a race to the bottom, is dumbing down, you know, and they're taking money off the military. They're killing off the economy. People aren't wanting to invest. Our energy supply is going to pot with Ed Miliband and his insane wind turbine insanity. But with the ex-KGB guy, he is so right. That's so much about how a society behaves and feels, and how cohesive a society is, and how much potential a society has, and how much future it has. It all comes back to the kids. And if you're just pushing woke, non-scientific, Marxist ideology and dumbing down education, how do you think that's going to transpire in a couple of decades when they're then in the workforce? Do you think that's going to create a strong economy? I don't think so. So where do we go? I think we've never needed a really conservative government as we do today. We didn't have a conservative government with the last government, and now we have this one. Happy Monday!